Hi everyone, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. We may just give it another moment or so because we've still got some people coming in through the lobby, so we'll give it a few more minutes and then we will make a start. Welcome everyone. If you've just joined us, we're just going to hang on another moment or so just to allow anyone who's arriving in the lobby to get into the meeting and get set up, and then we will make a start. Thanks very much. Okay, good evening everyone. I think what we will do is we shall make a start now because we're just a couple of minutes past the hour. We've still got one or two people joining, but I'm sure they will join us as we get going, and they'll pick up the flow as we go. So, firstly, thank you so much for giving up your time and attention this evening to come and listen to this webinar, all about exploring the BIK Teacher Corner, the Better Internet for Kids Teacher Corner. Really delighted to have you on the meeting, and we are recording this webinar, so please do be aware of that. Anything that's obviously typed into the chat, and at any point, if you put your camera on or your microphone on, then that's going to get captured as part of this recording as well. So please do be aware. But you are very welcome to ask any questions throughout the session. Very happy to answer anything, either as we go or at the end of the session. So please do feel free to type questions into the chat. And I've got a few of my colleagues from the digital citizenship team here on the call with me who will be keeping an eagle eye out in the chat for any questions. And we can address those as they come up or at the end of the session as well. And there will be some time for some Q&A. So do think of some questions as we go through. So, welcome. My name is Gareth Cort. I am an online safety consultant and part of the digital citizenship team at European Schoolnet, and we run the Better Internet for Kids platform. You may be familiar with the platform, you may not be. I'm going to give you a brief overview in a moment about the Better Internet for Kids project, and then we're going to have a look at one of the newer features on the Better Internet for Kids portal, which is the BIK Teacher Corner. Lots of resources and information and advice for you as educators, regardless of your role. We're then going to take a little bit of a deep dive into a couple of the modules that we have on the corner, specifically around generative AI and persuasive design, just to give you a bit more of a feel for those and some of the details that those entail. And then we've got a fantastic opportunity for you as an educator or teacher to get involved in our work. And I will explain that at the end of the session as well. So, as I said, don't forget you're being recorded. Feel free to ask any questions, and we're going to dive right in. So, a good place to start, of course, is the Better Internet for Kids program itself, just in case you're not familiar with it at all. It is a European Commission funded initiative, has been for a number of years now, aiming to create a better internet for Europe's children and young people. And a big part of that is the work that we do at European Schoolnet, coordinating the InSafe network of national safer internet centres. They are mostly spread across the European Union. There are some other European countries that have a safer internet centre that's part of the network. And then you get strange exceptions like myself based here in the UK, where we used to be part of the network, but thanks to Brexit, are no longer fully part of the network, but sort of an honorary member. We still do collaborate, but we can't receive European Commission funding. But so the network spans across the European Union and wider Europe. We also work in partnership and coordinate the InHope Network, which is the International Association of Internet Hotlines. So Safer Internet Centres that form part of that network have four different parts. They have an awareness raising centre. So that is an organisation within the Safer Internet Centre that raises awareness around online safety and issues around that, creates educational resources to be used by schools and other key stakeholders. Every centre has a helpline, and that helpline can be targeted towards different stakeholders. It could be towards young people themselves, it could be towards educators, it could be towards parents and carers, but that helpline is there in that country for anyone to contact regarding online safety issues involving children and young people. It has a hotline, as you just heard, the InHope Network. So the hotline is for the removal of illegal content, namely child sexual abuse material, or CSAM for short. So that network works to take reports on that illegal content and work to get it removed wherever it may reside online. And then the fourth constituent part is a really important one. It's the youth panels that each country has, providing a platform for young people to have a voice and an active role in the decisions that we're all making and working towards to try and make the internet a better place for them. So really important to make them part of that conversation and that process as well. And as you can see from the third bullet point, we don't just work with young people, we work with other key stakeholders right across the spectrum to help keep children safe online. So that includes young people themselves, it includes their parents and carers and families, it includes you as teachers and educators, it includes academics and researchers, it includes the internet industry itself. And so we have very good relationships with a number of the big platforms and apps and services as part of the work that we do across the network. It involves policymakers and lawmakers in different countries, and of course national law enforcement too. And there's a wealth of information, advice and resources that we offer as part of the Better Internet for Kids programme at betterinternetforkids.eu. One of those is the Teacher Corner, which I'm going to move on to in just a moment. But the reasons for the Teacher Corner stem from something very, very important that was published last year, a digital decade for children and youth. And it put forward what's known as the BIK Plus strategy. So a number of things that we're working towards in order to meet the key needs of all of those stakeholders that I mentioned on the previous slide, but obviously all in terms of trying to promote child and youth online safety, digital citizenship, and media literacy skills. So a broad range of skills around digital lives of children and youth, and indeed others around them as well. So you can see two of the key bullet points that relate to you in regards to teachers and educators on the screen. The importance of ongoing education and training for you as teachers to understand the issues that young people may face online and what you can do to educate them and support them around those, particularly in regards to things such as children's rights online. So the United Nations Conventions on the Rights of the Child was formally recognised a number of years ago to be just as pertinent online as it is in the offline world. So really important to understand how issues around children's rights may be resolved and addressed online too for the different groups that we work with. And as you can see from the second point, really trying to structure this teacher training and education in a way that's really useful and meaningful and accessible to you as a teacher or educator. So part of that are work that we do in what we call massive open online courses, or MOOCs for short. And we do have a platform called the European Schoolnet Academy that runs a number of MOOCs that you as an educator can join across a wide range of different educational topics involving technology. We obviously focus on ones to do with online safety and issues around that. So we're working on MOOCs over the next couple of years that are going to help address things and take your training further forward, but we also offer training modules throughout the Teacher Corner that I'm going to show you in a moment that can help with all of those things as well. And you can see a broad range of issues on the screen there about the types of things that it's important to be aware of and understand in order to support youth online, from media literacy to cyberbullying to pornography to consent and things around hate speech and harmful stereotypes as well. So how do you get to the Teacher Corner? Well, the address is there on the screen. You can see it, betterinternetforkids.eu/teacher-corner. And it's very much pitched as being a one-stop shop for learning and teaching about digital citizenship, online safety, and media literacy skills that you can help your students to develop. All of the training modules and materials on there are completely free to access. They aim to give you information about particular topics and aspects around online safety and digital citizenship to bring you up to speed with what you need to know, and then offer advice for you as an educator about how to support the young people and children that you work with, and then also offer up suggested resources that are useful to use in the classroom, but indeed in a whole school community as well. They're very much aimed at being discrete learning modules. So you can dip in and out of them as you see fit. There is no sort of planned progression through the teacher corner. It's available as if you like as a toolkit that you can delve in and out of, selecting the modules that are relevant to you. We also use it as a fantastic opportunity to spotlight the amazing work that happens across the InSafe network of safer internet centres. So from time to time, we'll be spotlighting resources that may be available in your own country that are particularly relevant to the national context as well. So there are 4 introductory modules in the platform, and I'm not actually going to show you it live in this webinar because I think this provides a good overview. And more importantly, I think the best way to understand it and explore it is to probably go and have a good look at it yourself on betterinternetforkids.eu. But there are 4 introductory modules that we recommend all teachers and educators work through first, just to make sure you've got that broad grounding in terms of the things you need to know in this area. And you can see they are the 4 that are pictured on the screen. Children's rights in a digital world, which I already mentioned earlier, is really important to understand and have a handle on. The key online safety risks and the spectrum of those risks and how they affect different young people and children at different ages and stages of development. The importance of understanding the positive and proactive and effective approaches for teaching online safety and media literacy and digital citizenship skills, depending on your role in school. And also this importance of understanding what a whole school and whole school community approach is to these kind of issues as well, so that the good things that you're doing in your classroom aren't an isolated pocket of great practice. There's actually stuff that's happening across the different classrooms in your school and across the community so that everyone's on the same page and understands the things we can all do to help support youth online. So those are the introductory modules that we recommend working through. And each of those modules contains key information on that particular topic. They contain 1 or 2 suggested activities, and these are provided in a very low-key fashion, very low-tech fashion as well. They're all paper and pencil ones. You can either read them on the screen and reflect and make some notes, on a piece of paper. For some of them, they may be the kind of thing you may just want to print off the bit that you see on the screen and, make some notes on that or move things around. So they're very, very low tech, but they are very much based on being reflective, being thoughtful around the issues, considering your own context in your classroom and with the learners you work with, and how that applies to the particular topic that you're learning about in these modules. They offer broad advice for educators because, of course, depending on your background, you may be coming from a preschool background, a primary age background, a secondary age, a tertiary education background. So we aim to provide advice that works for all educators at different levels. But there is lots of suggested further reading and lots of signposting to useful resources at all those different levels that you may find of benefit to you to be able to move out into and to have a look at, and to then find things that are more relevant to you and to your learners as well. So those are the introductory modules. On top of that, we are working month on month to introduce more and more deep dive modules. So these are added on a monthly basis, and you can see all the ones that we've added on the screen so far. So these are modules that focus on a specific issue or a specific aspect of online safety or digital citizenship or media literacy, exploring those in more detail to give you a greater level of understanding in these areas. Again, each of those modules has an activity that you can self-direct to help with your learning, and signposts to relevant research and resources that can help you to take this further into the classroom and work with your learners on these topics. So you can see we've got cyberbullying, we've got sexting, cybersecurity, cybercrime, online gaming, mis and disinformation, generative AI and persuasive design, which are the 2 that we'll be having a closer look at in a moment, the role of algorithms in online platforms, healthy digital habits, and a slightly worrying trend, one that we know is on the rise in recent years, sextortion, which can impact on both youth and adult alike. So as I mentioned, we're adding those on a month-by-month basis. There are plenty of topics still to cover, so plenty of materials that we can continue to add to those. So plenty of things that you can return to the site month on month to learn from as well. And as I mentioned, just like the introductory modules, detailed information, suggested activities, both activities that you may wish to do for yourself as an educator to further your learning, but also in many cases activities that you can take straight into the classroom and use with the learners as well. We've tried to include video content, mainly great things that other people put together on YouTube and other platforms that help explain some of these quite complicated topics, tailored advice around these topics, and as I mentioned, other signposting to further reading and resources. So lots and lots of things to keep you very, very busy. A monthly schedule, and we will continue that going, but we're also trying to make sure that we tie this in to other things that we do at European SchoolNet, other resources and initiatives that may be of interest to you as teachers and educators. So I've just got a couple of those on the screen here. Both of these were actually MOOCs, massive open online courses that we've ran in the last couple of years. The one on the left is the Games in Schools MOOC, which is a very popular one that we've run 6 times, I believe now, over the years, and that ran earlier this year. And the one on the right was a project that we finished last year called Facts for All, which was focusing on a whole school approach to tackling disinformation issues in your school community. That could be things around, say, vaccinations, which obviously kind of spilled out of COVID. It could be things around political views and ideologies, or other issues that may exist in a school community that are divisive and divide people. And so that project was all about finding ways to bring those people together and trying to find ways of separating fact from fiction in those issues. So although both of those MOOCs are in the past, they have now finished, and you can't actually run through them to get the course certificate at the end, you can still access all of the materials from those online courses by signing up to the European SchoolNet Academy for free, and then you can access those courses in their entirety. So we're trying to find ways to link in these deep dive modules on different topics with various resources and initiatives, and there will be more MOOCs in the future that you will have opportunity to join on a wide variety of topics as well. And then finally, the platform and the Teacher Corner also provide an opportunity to signpost to your National Safer Internet Centre and all the fantastic work and resources that they have to offer as well. Also offering to other MOOCs, as I mentioned, ones that maybe have been run in your country or other projects that have been run by Safer Internet Centres and other organisations. Really making sure that we highlight Safer Internet Day, and the next Safer Internet Day is on Tuesday, the 6th of February, 2024. So you will start to see more and more on the Better Internet for Kids platform about Safer Internet Day and how you can get involved in the day. And as I mentioned, other useful resources and advice too. So if you have any questions about the BIK Teacher Corner, please do feel free to drop them into the chat. Happy to answer them as we go through the session. But I wanted to take some time now in the session just to focus on 2 of those deep dive modules, ones that are particularly topical at the moment, both in the classroom and outside the classroom, just to give you a bit more information about them, offer up some advice and answer any questions that you may have. And the first of which is an exceedingly topical one we're hearing about a lot in the media, one that you may have even tried out a little bit yourself, but one that is definitely on the radar of many children and young people as well, and that is generative AI. Where do we start? Well, we need to start with AI itself, a term which is rather complicated at best, to be honest. Artificial intelligence, AI, has a number of different layers. It's a little bit like an onion. So if you look at that graphic on the right there, you can see that AI is a very, very broad term to encompass a number of different aspects related to computers and programs that we are trying to train to think and behave like human beings. And we do that at different levels depending on their purpose. So at the broadest level, we call it AI, and a level down from that is what we call machine learning, which is where we're actually training these computers and these tools to be able to learn for themselves based on the data that they are trained on. The next level down from that is deep learning, which is where they are not just able to learn and classify data, but they're able to start taking that to produce new data. And then a subset of that, the one that we're hearing about a lot at the moment, is this idea of generative AI, being able to take previously learned data and unknown data and use it to create brand new data in many forms. And the labels on the left just help you understand it a little bit further. So there's broadly 2 main types. You've got discriminative AI, which is AI technology and tools that are trained on what we call labeled data. So it tells you what the data is, and the AI learns it, and it learns the relationship between the data and the labels. And then it can then use that to classify and predict future data. Say, for example, an AI tool that was trained on lots of pictures of cats. would be able to recognize pictures of cats in the future because that's what it's been trained on. That's what it knows. If you start showing it pictures of gorillas, elephants, and giraffes, it's probably going to get a little bit confused because it only knows what is a cat and what isn't a cat. So it's quite discrete in those terms. Generative AI is a little bit more sophisticated, though. It follows some of the same processes. It's still trained on some labeled data, for example, pictures of cats, but then it's trained on a whole load of data that doesn't have any labels. They might be pictures of cats, they might not be. And then it's told to make a picture of a cat. And it uses its learning based on those different types of photos of cats to then be able to make a photo, a brand new photo that's never been seen before of a cat. And if it's done its job correctly and it's learned correctly, it should produce a picture that looks like a cat. It also contains something, and this is where it starts to get technical, so bear with me, contains what we know as neural networks. So networks are programming and decision trees that aim to think and act a little bit more like the human brain and the synapses in the human brain. And what generative AI often does is it has competing systems of neural networks. So two sets of programs working in tandem against each other in competition to try and outdo the other one. And that's why we've seen such dramatic increase in the quality of artificial intelligence in the last couple of years. These tools have reached a point where we're actually starting to pit them against each other in competition to see who can do the best job. And all that does is it actually drives the progress forward even more quickly. They get better and better, more and more quickly at doing the task that we set them. So generative AI is able to produce things in lots of different forms, and it largely relies on what we call prompts. So usually a text prompt, so a piece of written text telling the AI tool what you want it to produce or make, and then the tool makes that thing. That could be producing text as an output. It could be producing photos or images or videos or audio or many other things, as you'll see in a moment. I've tried to explain that the best I can, but actually I've got quite a nice 2-minute video on the next slide that probably does a better job than me of giving some really practical examples. So let's have a look at the video together.
Hey Gareth. Um,
But is no one else getting any voice either?
yeah, which is strange because obviously when we tested it, it was fine, but let's try that
Let's
again.
try that again. So sorry about that. Thank you
No
for saying
worries.
in the chat as well. I will just stop sharing screen and just reshare it again. And I imagine what's happened is it's untoggled the oh no, it has got the sound. There we go. Let's give it another go. See if that works. Fingers crossed. You should be able to hear the sound this time around. Let's try again. Sorry about that.
What exactly is generative AI? When new content is created by artificial intelligence, it's called generative AI. This could involve generating texts and images, as well as videos, music, or voices. To do this, you describe in a chat dialog box what you want the AI to create. This description is called a prompt. The generative AI tools provide answers to all sorts of questions, summarize complex information, and generate diverse ideas quickly. Depending on how they're used, they can create short stories, paintings, pieces of code, or even musical compositions. The foundation for this creation lies in large amounts of data that the AI system accesses to identify patterns and similarities. The content produced by the AI is new. It's often impressive and challenging to distinguish from things humans have made. Generative AI can also be misused. In so-called deepfakes, AI is utilized to produce images or videos that seem real. AI-generated texts are also tough to recognize as machine-made. Moreover, the AI can provide answers that sound correct but are actually incorrect. This is called hallucinating. The quality of what's created depends on both the quality of the data used and the quality of the prompts given. To effectively utilize generative AI, we need to learn how to guide the tools with meaningful prompts and use them thoughtfully. Generative AI holds immense potential and can help us in many ways, such as serving as a writing or learning partner. However, the AI should do the hard work, and humans should be responsible for the facts.
There we go. Hopefully you could hear it that time around. Bear with me just a second. There we go. Perfect. Thank you. And thanks for saying in the chat as well. So yeah, that explained it a little bit better than I could there. But some points raised immediately there, which we'll come back to about the benefits of generative AI, but also the potential downsides to it. You know, it's a double-edged sword. There are things that we need to consider in its use, both by ourselves as individuals, but of course by young people as well. So, what are some of those benefits? Well, there are many, many different tools available, as you can see from this this graphic on the screen here. And I really struggled when I was putting these slides together to find a suitable graphic to really give you a sense of scale for the amount of generative AI tools that are now available. This was the best I could do, and already just looking at this, I can see tools that are in constant use by many people today that aren't represented on this wheel. And it just shows there are hundreds and hundreds of AI tools out there for different purposes, and you can see some of those purposes spread both around the outside rim of the reel, so things that are related to text or video or image or code or speech. And in fact, music isn't represented on this one. There are lots of tools for generating AI created music for 3D imaging and for research purposes as well. And then you can actually see within some of these spokes as well as subsets of those different uses. So for things around building web applications or generating code or desktop design or image generation or creating art or marketing or sales or knowledge. The possibilities are endless with generative AI tools. They really can create a huge number of different things that previously would have required many, many, many human hours. And increasingly, we're also seeing collaboration across these different tools. So for a long time, with many of the products and services we use online, we've had this concept known as app smashing, this idea that you can use an app on your phone to make one type of content and then drop it into another app and do something with that. And we're seeing a lot of that happening right now. So for example, say you wanted to produce an explainer video on YouTube. You could get a text-based AI like ChatGPT to write the script for the video. You could then drop that script into a video creation tool, AI tool, to actually make the video based on your script. You could then drop the script into a speech tool to get someone to read it for you. So an AI voice would read it for you as well. And it would very much put it all together for you. And your involvement as a human being would be much, much less than you having to create a whole video and edit it, to write the script from scratch, to record all the audio on a microphone. So these tools are offering lots and lots of quick and easy ways of generating content and then being able to use that content in other purposes as well. And what are the benefits of it? Well, as you might have gathered, a huge, huge scope for being creative in many, many different forms and fashions. And I've given just a very narrow set of examples on this slide here. You can see two examples there of AI generated art and artwork. Ones where they've been given a text prompt, a description of what the person would like the picture to look like, and the AI tool has interpreted it and created a piece of art as a result. I also decided to have a little go. So you can see just about on the right-hand side, I asked ChatGPT to write me a short poem about the creative benefits of generative AI. And in less than 2 seconds, I had a four stanza poem right there. I did go for a haiku to start with, but it was a bit short, so I went for a slightly longer poem. So the possibilities for being creative and for using technology to expand the boundaries of creativity are immense. It still sometimes relies on having an idea as a human being to start with. But increasingly, even if you're not quite sure what it is you want to make, generative AI is able to give you some of those starting points for your ideas as well. So it really can expand creativity across different media types. And for many people, it is a very quick and easy set of tools to use. It's very accessible in a sense that you don't have to download things onto a device. A lot of them work through a browser using cloud-based services, so they can work equally well depending on whether you're using a desktop or a laptop computer, to a smartphone, to a tablet, to other forms of internet-enabled devices as well. So taking a lot of the legwork out of the device having to do the heavy lifting and the processing. It's all happening in the cloud, and so it can all be saved in the cloud. It can all be shared from the cloud. Very easy to create things and to share them very quickly. And it works with different skill levels. As I mentioned, you still sometimes need some element of understanding as a human about what you want to create, but it doesn't require you to be a skilled artist to create generative AI art. The AI is doing the hard work for you. That being said, if you are a skilled artist, there are ways that you may be able to take these type of tools further than a non-skilled artist. And if you're a proficient writer, if you're a good writer, you're going to be able to take things like ChatGPT further in your writing than someone who can't read and write very well. So there are different levels that you can access this on, and it can help people all different levels of ability. There are some of these services that are subscription based, particularly some of the image and photo based ones and music based ones. They offer subscription services, but many of these tools are free to use. They may just be limited by how many turns or generations you can make in a day. A number of these tools are often open source as well, so they're offered completely freely for people to develop and expand upon further. So a lot of freedom of access on these things too. And as I mentioned there, and the video mentioned right at the end, it does the grunt work. It does the heavy lifting and, if you like, sometimes the boring parts of some tools and tasks that we would normally have to do as humans. So, I didn't have to explain to ChatGPT what a poem was. ChatGPT already knew. I just told it I wanted it to write a poem. It went off and wrote a poem. I didn't have to provide any of the vocabulary that I wanted it to include, although I could have done. It decided to do that for itself. So a lot of the more menial work and the tasks around things such as data sorting and data classification are things that generative AI can do very, very quickly and almost automatically without us as human beings having to invest that time and effort. And that can be really useful because it can free us up as human beings to be more creative or to be more innovative or to think in different ways. We're not having to spend all of our time doing those more basic things that a computer program is now able to do in a split second. And in terms of wider accessibility, it really can level that playing field for users who have physical disabilities. So it could be, difficulties around hearing, difficulties around sight, or impairment around sight. It can be difficulties around understanding and cognitive ability. There are many, many ways that these tools can be used to help those users access the internet in a better way. It could be things like screen readers. It could be things that can automatically simplify the language of anything that's created down to that person's developmental level. So there are many, many applications of this, both in and out of the classroom. And you might be able to think of some already just from hearing me explain some of these. That's the good side of it. And the potential for this is huge and potentially unlimited. But that's not to say it doesn't carry some significant risks and issues that can be raised alongside this. And here are some of those. And you can see some of the pictures on the screen giving a clue as to what some of those might be. The first one, and you heard it in the video, slightly alarming to hear the idea that computers could be hallucinating, but that is the term that's given to it. The fact that in the absence of verifiable fact and information, some generative AI tools make things up. So, if, for example, there have been some great examples where people have asked things like ChatGPT to write an essay on a particular topic and to cite relevant academic research that fits into this. And if ChatGPT can't find any relevant research, it makes it up. It makes up names of professors that never existed. It makes up dates of studies that never happened. It will try and fill in the blanks because it knows that's what you want. You want all of that information. And if it can't find that information online, it will do its best to try and fill those gaps for you. Unfortunately, it fills those gaps by making up details. And that causes huge issues. Obviously, if you're then planning to use the information that generative AI has given you for the basis of something really important, both in work or education or leisure and hobbies, then of course, misinformation and disinformation coming through the tool itself to you, where it's made mistakes or it assumes things that aren't true, are going to cause huge, huge issues. So we do need to keep that in mind, is that despite the fact that these tools can produce information very, very quickly, there still needs to be processes around it to verify how accurate and trustworthy that information is. And this wider concept of trust becomes more of an issue, as you can see from the Donald Trump picture on the left of the slide here. When it's used to create things that aren't true and spread out there as a part of a disinformation campaign, it can be very, very difficult to tell whether or not it's true. Now, thankfully, with issues such as, Donald Trump being hauled to the ground by police officers, that's quite easy to verify online, because you'd imagine if that had actually happened, it would be over every single news website and media website imaginable for days. They'd be reporting on it as their number one story. So for things like that, a little bit easier to verify. But we are getting to the point where these tools are creating lots and lots of visual images, photos, and videos that are so realistic that you cannot tell the difference between a fake and a real one. And that's really, really tricky. The human eye can't detect things. There are still a couple of traits in generative AI that haven't quite ironed out. So if you look very closely at that photo of Donald Trump and you look at some of the hands of the police officers around him, generative AI still isn't very good at drawing hands. Let's face it, who is good at drawing hands? It's really hard for humans to draw in artwork as well, and AI struggles with it too. It struggles sometimes with knowing what details to include or not include in photos. You sometimes see generated images and photos where people's faces are kind of blurry or out of proportion because the AI doesn't fully understand how to make those details accurate. But it's getting better all the time, and I think some of those loopholes and those vulnerabilities will be closed off very quickly as these tools improve further in the future. And that does then mean that you're faced with a situation where you cannot tell if something online has been created by an artificial intelligence program or if it's been created by a real human being. And that's a tricky situation in terms of trust. A number of experts have been talking about this in great detail in recent months. Some of the suggestions are things such as digitally watermarking images that AI has made. That might be so it's visible to anyone to see, to know that that picture has been made by an AI, or it could be an invisible watermark that could be detected by running a tool on the image in order to check who had actually made it and how it was created. So it does introduce this potential issue of things we've said in the past around media literacy online and what to trust and what not to trust. Those messages don't work fully anymore now. We kind of need to know other skills and strategies that we can use in order to decide whether what we're seeing online is real or fake, or is trustworthy, or is trying to disinform us in some way. And that's a really tricky position to be in, particularly for you as educators trying to teach children and young people the skills they need to navigate this very complicated online world. The picture on the right there, which is clearly of the minions, raises issues around plagiarism and ownership. Because these generative AI tools are often trained on existing data. So, for example, an AI that can generate artwork may be trained on existing artwork out there from all the great artists across the years, but including lesser known artists that maybe post their stuff on Instagram. And there have been a number of issues raised in recent months about AI tools being trained on copyrighted imagery, so basically creations of other people, without their consent being sought first and without them being compensated in any kind of way for helping to train that AI. So AI sometimes is very, very good at producing images and photos and videos that mimic existing art styles and existing photography styles that are out there, to the point where you might believe the original artist had created that themselves. And that then raises issues around plagiarism and ownership. And also, if you use an AI to generate something, who does it belong to? Does it belong to you because you told the AI to do it? Or does it belong to the AI or the company who made the AI? Some interesting issues there, because, ownership requires a human being to own something. Can a computer tool own content that it makes? Interesting discussions that we haven't quite got to the end to yet, but raises potential issues for your learners in the future as well. There are instances where this can actually expose children and young people to harmful content, depending on what they may prompt an AI to do. The content it produces back may be something that may be harmful. If you imagine someone who may already be self-harming in some way, if they are asking an AI for suggestions about how to self-harm or to depict content of self-harm, then that could be reinforcing behaviors that are actually placing them in harmful situations or risky situations. So there is the potential for these tools to be misused in that context, both against ourselves, if someone chose to do so, or against other people as well. There are issues around data collection and data privacy. Many of these services, as I mentioned, are free, but many of them still require sign up and accounts, and many offer the opportunity to log in with your Google account. So there's data collection happening from these companies that are offering these tools, but there are also potentials for data privacy breaches, by these tools inadvertently giving away sensitive personal information. If you ask them a question about a particular person or a particular topic, they might give out these details without fully understanding that the personal data they're giving in their answer is something that shouldn't be shared with the public. So you've got issues around this too. And then the bottom image here shows some research studies that have been done recently that show that because generative AI is trained on some existing data, much of that data tends to be biased in some way because it's been created by human beings to start with. We as human beings are fundamentally biased in many different ways, sometimes conscious, sometimes unconscious. And what generative AI tools tend to do is amplify that level of existing bias, both in the data that's collected and used, but also in societal views as well. And this graphic that you can see here at the bottom, it analyzed AI generated photos of people. So tools that are out there that can create, brand new faces of human beings that don't exist. And it took those generated photos of people and it ran it through another AI tool to sort those people based on their profession and their skin color. And you can see, and I'm afraid teacher falls into the lower paying occupation there, I'm afraid. Sorry about that. But that's just the way they classified it. The row at the bottom are lower paid occupations. And you can see darker skin colors featuring far more prominently in those lower paid occupations as opposed to the higher paying occupations up the top here. And they found a similar pattern around gender as well in terms of roles and expected roles for women and men in society and jobs. And so that does show that there's amplification of bias. Sometimes AI can make the existing societal problems even worse, and that's tricky. And lastly, but no less important, it can have an impact on education because if we're teaching children to use these tools to be able to do things very, very quickly, are they missing out on vital steps in their learning where they need to actually learn how to write properly before they just ask ChatGPT to write them an essay? Are they missing the chance to learn artistic skills because they could just get a tool to do that for them? There's already some evidence coming out of law firms around the world suggesting that some of their junior lawyers who are joining the firms are lacking key skills and the chance to experience those key skills because AI is able to do some of that for them, and they're not getting a chance to learn the process behind it, which is actually making them a weaker lawyer at the end of the process because they haven't gone through all those processes and that learning needed to do that job to the best of their ability. So it can have a far-reaching impact on education as well. So what can you do about this? It's very much about exploring these tools together. They are fast changing and fast moving, but taking opportunities to talk about it and work through some of these in the classroom with your learners is a great idea, as is thinking about what you think might happen next. Be a futurist. Where could this be in 1 year, 5 year, or 10 years time? Get children to think about this as well. No one's right at this point or no one's wrong. You don't know, but thinking about it sometimes raises potential issues before they become issues that your young people may experience. Recognize that it can create a digital divide. So not everyone has access to smartphones and to cloud-based services. So be wary of that in terms of how you may use this in and out of the classroom, particularly if you're setting any homework that requires them to go away and use these type of tools to complete that homework. And it's also about developing the right kind of skills, as I mentioned, around digital privacy skills, media literacy skills, but also the specific skills to use these tools to the best of their ability. And the screenshot on the right there just shows some of the guides and ideas about how to write a good prompt to a text-based AI in order to get out what you want. And the more detailed you can be in your prompt, the better the results you're going to get at the end. So there's a certain level of skill around that can be developed too. So all of these things are really, really important. That brings us to the end of generative AI. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat and I'll scoop them up in a moment. But this other one is also one that's not particularly new, but very pertinent to many of us in our day-to-day digital lives, this idea of persuasive design. What is persuasive design? Well, it's techniques used in most online services, games, apps, and modern devices in order to keep us using that device or service for longer. Reasons for this are numerous, as you'll see on the next slide, but largely based around making money because, a lot of services are ad-based, a lot of services are free, and a lot of services make their money through data collection and selling of user data as well. So the more that can be done to keep people using a particular product or service and for longer, the more opportunities for that company to monetize that in some way. Advertising is one way. It could be looking at adverts on the screen. And let's face it, if you're not looking at the screen, you can't look at the adverts. So they need to get you in front of the screen. It could be engagement, so how long you watch something for, or whether you click through an advert, or whether looking at those adverts then results in purchasing something either in that app or from another company that purchased the advertising space. It's around data collection as well, as I mentioned, personal data that you may input on social media platforms and other services, but also behavior data. How long do you log in for? Do you log in when you get a certain notification? How long do you watch that video for? And all these kind of things that may sort of feed back into loops to get you to stay onto these things for longer. And then finally, this whole idea of investment and obligation. So this whole idea of brand loyalty. If you've been an Apple customer for many years, it's quite hard to change and move to another company now because you've become invested in their ecosystem of products and services. Likewise, it can do things to encourage competition between users. So online games, for example, if you're really invested in playing an online game and you've been playing it for a number of years, you want to stay as part of the competition. You want to compete with other people, and that sometimes means using that product or service for longer than maybe you first intended. So all of these kind of things can exist, and they can take many, many different forms. So I won't go through all of these in great detail, but just highlighting a number of the different techniques that are out there that can persuade all of us, child or adult, to use these products and services for longer, or to get back in front of a screen even when we've previously disengaged and put down the technology. This is not a get out of jail free card for anyone, by the way, but it should be recognized that all of these things on the screen basically prey on psychological vulnerabilities that we have as human beings, things that we don't always have conscious control of. Technology has become very, very adept at manipulating those aspects of our psychology and our thinking and our behavior to get us to do certain things and to stay on devices and technology longer. I can imagine your eyes were drawn straight to the middle of this slide because that is a classic example of a nudge technique in action online. If you make the thing you want people to look at or click on bigger than other things, it tends to draw their attention. Think about adverts you've maybe seen popping up in apps and online games where the OK button is a massive green button, and then the no thanks bit is just a little bit of text underneath or in the corner somewhere, somewhere that's not so obvious to see. So these nudge techniques of making certain aspects larger or more appealing is a very powerful one in guiding people into pressing things or doing things that may help stay on the service longer or monetize their behavior further. Your eyes might have also been drawn up to the top right-hand corner of the slide with the use of color, because if you think about the notifications you receive on your smartphone or your tablet for the different apps you use, they quite often show a little circle on the app icon that's either red or orange in color. Color theory in psychology is a little bit muddled, if I'm honest, but using bright, bold colors like red and orange are a very good way of getting people's attention again, as are other types of notifications. So all those buzzings, those beeps, those messages you receive on screen telling you that something's happening in an app or that your lives have refilled in your favorite online game are all good ways of getting someone to come back to that app and use it further because it's piqued their interest again. Other things exist though, so things like infinite scroll. If you go to some websites, particularly common interest news websites or on services like Instagram, and you scroll down the feed, you can keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. You never reach the end. It's what we call infinite scroll. It's the system constantly showing content to you that may be of interest so that you never reach the bottom. Because you never reach the bottom, you never stop. If you never stop, you stay on it for longer. So all these things designed to sometimes displace our sense of time and get us to use things for far longer than maybe we expected. And algorithms play a part in this as well. And they are the ones that drive this infinite scroll. And the Wall Street Journal famously did a study a couple of years ago looking at the algorithms on TikTok as they were in 2021. And found that TikTok is able to figure out a user's interests and hobbies even without that user saying anything in their profile or posting anything about it. And the algorithms are able to figure that out from anywhere between 30 to 90 minutes based solely on how long a user pauses on or watches a video for on TikTok. And through the algorithms, it will start serving up more and more of the content it thinks you like. And within a couple of hours, it's figured out your exact hobbies and interests. These things are very, very powerful at figuring out what we like to see and then serving up more of it to keep us engaged for longer. Other ones like that fit into that are things like autoplay. So think about your favorite streaming service, be it Disney Plus or Netflix or Amazon Prime Video or things like that. When you get to the end of an episode of a series, what happens? The next episode queues up straight away to play. All things designed to keep you engaged with the service for longer. You can see there's lots of others on the screen here. So gambling mechanics are very much as they sound. It's techniques that very much resemble gambling. And depending on which country you're from, there may well be laws already in your country that ban certain aspects of these in online games, particularly around things such as loot boxes. There's also social aspects of this that it preys on. So things like FOMO, fear of missing out. The more you can do to make people think that they have to be involved in everything going on in that online space or online game, the more you can keep them involved and get them doing things for longer. And the minute they feel they've missed out on something, they might get anxious and want to get back on it more quickly. The same as social obligation. If you think about if you're a WhatsApp user, those 2 blue ticks that appear underneath messages to demonstrate to users backwards and forwards when we've seen each other's messages, it creates a social obligation. How long can you go once you've seen someone's message and they know you've seen it? How long can you go before you have to respond? 5 minutes? 10 minutes? 3 weeks, 2 years? It differs from person to person, but it creates an obligation to engage with things again. So all of these things are very, very powerful. And these affect people in different ways, whether they are child, young person, or adult, but they all have the potential to nudge us and move our behavior and sometimes take away that feeling of choice. And the last thing that we want is for anyone, child or adult, to feel that they wake up and they engage with technology or their phone, and that they're being ruled by that technology from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to sleep, because it might look a little something like this.
Hey. Do it.
Do it? You want me to do it?
Do it. Do the thing.
You got it. 5 new emails from your boss. Climate change. A famous person said something racist. A new law's being passed to stop women from breathing too much.
Going.
45 people saw your Instagram story. Jerry Seinfeld is canceled. There's a new kind of COVID probably.
Hey.
Oh yeah, what's up, baby boy?
Do you think it's healthy for me to start every single day like this?
Yes.
But like in terms of like mental health?
Yes.
Okay, then let's keep going.
A volcano erupted. Ben Shapiro said something. Now everyone's yelling.
Okay, I'm gonna go make some coffee now, all right? I'm gonna need you to come with me and keep going all day.
Yes?
If you're sat there feeling a little bit sheepish and feeling that might be you some days, don't worry. I think we've probably all been there, particularly throughout the course of the pandemic, where technology behaviors around technology may have changed quite a lot because we were spending so much more time using them. But the important thing is to understand the risks around this and what we can do to help young people maintain that element of choice so that they can decide at what level they engage with technology. And sometimes the way of thinking about it is to imagine it a bit like a magician's trick, like a magic act. If you know how a magician does the trick, you can still enjoy the magic trick for what it is, but you don't blindly just believe that it's magic and it all just happened, somehow. There's always an explanation behind it. It might use mirrors or sleight of hand or fake props. There's always a way that a magician does their trick. It's not real magic. And sometimes that helps with this area as well. Knowing what some of these things are and being aware of them allows you to choose whether or not you go along with them or whether you try to resist them in some way. And that brings that choice back to the individual user. And I think that's a really powerful thing for anyone, but particularly for children and young people when they use tech. And here are the risks on the screen. There are risks to potential physical health in terms of eye strain, headaches, dry eyes, potential impact on sleep, although that's debated a lot at the moment. Physical health in terms of posture and the way that we interact with devices and things like games controllers as well. And there is some evidence to suggest that it can have an impact on things such as obesity and diets, and particularly snacking while gaming as well. We're hearing more and more about the potential impacts of social media and online platforms on mental health and well-being. And while those relationships are complicated in terms of what impact social media may be having on people's mental health and well-being, it is important to acknowledge that excessive device usage for some can lead to issues around self-esteem or anxiety or depression or vastly changing mood, and that is widely acknowledged. It can affect our social well-being, because if you're spending all your time using tech, then that might affect your academic progress, not getting your schoolwork done, not getting your actual work done in your job. It may affect your relationships with friends and family and others, and it could lead to more problematic use that may affect your day-to-day life as well. And then for some people, may actually result in financial worries as well. So in terms of spending more money than they'd expected, or being drawn into doing other things where they're not getting value for money, but they feel compelled to spend it either way, or even entering into gambling behaviors too. So what can you do about this? It's about constant discussions with children and young people about digital balance, that balance between how we use technology and what we do when we're away from technology. And that balance is different for each and every person. But having regular discussions, talking about strategies to try and create that balance, and what to do when you feel that balance isn't quite right, are really important ones to have. So the more discussion you can have about this, the better, quite frankly. It's about, as I mentioned, raising awareness of that magic act. What are these techniques that underpin these, so that children and young people are more aware of these when they're happening, and they can do more to decide how they engage with these techniques. It's about also exploring the settings if possible. So on the left here, you can see a couple of screenshots from smartphones. There are lots of ways now to turn off app notifications so that your device isn't bugging you all the time to get back in front of a screen to look at a particular thing. And there are lots of tools increasingly now on smartphones and other devices to show you how long you're spending on different apps, and even set yourself limits. So you can impose some limits to make sure you don't go above those times. It's also about working with families, understanding that tech use at home is going to be different to tech use in school, and so families may not necessarily understand positive and purposeful use. They may not have an idea of routines or boundaries or expectations around these things too. So sometimes working with families to set family agreements or family rules about what is okay and not okay to do with technology can really help in this area. And of course, some of those more specific aspects that relate to financial well-being, like online purchases and gambling, are really important to discuss and raise awareness of as well. Um, if you've got any questions on either of those, please do feel free to share in the chat. But one final thing that I wanted to leave you with, really important, is how you can have a voice in all of this work that we're doing on the Better Internet for Kids portal. So we have launched a call for participation for the BIK Teacher Voice Panel. We're really, really keen to hear from you as teachers and educators about your experiences and understanding of these issues that affect children online, and what you think we can do to make better changes online, what we can do to drive these changes forward, not just for children and young people, but for educators, for schools, and for other key stakeholders too. So all the details are here on the slide. Anna Rita has actually dropped into the chat the link for persuasive design, and she will be dropping into the chat in a moment the link for the survey to sign up for the teacher voice panel as well. You can see the requirements on the left hand side of the slide. So you need to be actively teaching in an EU country at any level up to age 18, have an awareness of online safety and media literacy issues, and be able to express your ideas and opinions clearly in English, both written and spoken. But if you are interested in getting involved in this work and sharing your experiences and your ideas, we would love to hear from you. Please do sign up on the survey link. And that brings us to the end. If you have any questions at all, then please do feel free to drop them into the chat. And I'm happy to spend the last few moments of this call going through it in this webinar. Otherwise, you can see my email address on the screen, and I will drop that into the chat in a moment as well. Please do feel free to contact me at any time after today's webinar, and I'm very, very happy to help you in any way that I can too. But once again, thank you so much for joining me on this webinar. Hope you found it useful, and please do go and explore the BIK Teacher Corner. Thanks so much.
Gareth, while we wait a few moments to see if there are any questions, I just wanted to thank you for the webinar. I found it personally incredibly helpful, so thank you very much. And
my pleasure.
Yeah, I was taking notes, and I hope everyone enjoyed it as well, at least found it useful. And thanks again for joining us on this Thursday afternoon. I'm aware that it might be a tricky time for some, but yeah.
So it's almost the weekend, almost.
Yeah, at least, yeah. That's the good news.
And I believe, just to check, Anna Rita, we'll find a way of getting the slides out to people as well. Can we make those available?
Definitely.
So you're very welcome to have my slide deck, and you saw there were a few links throughout the slides that you might find of interest too. So we'll find a way of getting that to you as well. Brilliant. And thank you to everyone who's posted thanks in the chat. Much appreciated.
I see a question about the recording of the webinar. Yes, you will find it on the Teacher Corner. We have the section on Teacher Corner about the webinar specifically, because as we mentioned, this is the first webinar of a series. The idea is to kind of explore all the potential that is there of the Teacher Corner, and that's where you will find all the recordings. I'm going to share the link now specifically to that page about webinars.
And the videos that featured in the slide deck, I've actually put the links to the videos in the slides. I can see if I can pull them out quickly for you if anyone wants just the specific video links as well. So bear with me a second and I'll just do that. I definitely recommend going and having a look at the second video because he makes lots of very funny videos.
Yeah, I really liked him, I have to say.
And we've got a question there about deep dives available in other languages. I'm afraid at present, the idea is just to have all the deep dives in English, but it's not to say that there is an opportunity to maybe translate some of those into additional languages in the future. But I'm afraid the plan moving forward at present is just to provide them in English. Yeah, that's a good question. So that's very much where we probably would rely on our partners across the InSafe network of national safer internet centres. If they are able and have the capacity to translate those, then
Yes.
of course they would be able to do
By all
so, and
means.
we'd be able to find a way of hosting those too. Yeah. Brilliant. Well, if you have any more questions, feel free to drop them into the chat, and I'm happy to hang on to the call and answer those questions. Otherwise, please do feel free to go and enjoy your Thursday evening. And thanks so much again for your time and attention.